Recording in progress.
And ask everyone to rise and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Flag looks good. We've reached that point in the meeting for public comments, which I was told at our last meeting is the most entertaining of the whole night's meeting. Anything that's not on the agenda that people want to talk about? Karen.
Thank you, Ivan. Okay, so first off, I'm going to start off by saying thank you for your time. Since, as my husband pointed out to me, I never thank you and I always depart your meetings very upset. So I'm saying thank you. As you all know, that Mr. Murphy sent me a letter dated June 2nd. And I just want to review that letter with you because there's some discrepancies. So I would like to review the 4 bullet points from Mr. Murphy's letter. His first bullet point concerning the pergola permit requires attention. He states that the permit is not subject to retroactive amendment or denial because of, quote, nonconformities are existing and allowed to continue per section 8.1 of the omission is significant as it leaves the zoning administrator unable to confirm the basis for the permit's allowance. More importantly, Mr. Rodriguez materially misled the board with his permit application and subsequent testimony. The town of Manchester has a fundamental responsibility to ensure permit holders provide accurate and truthful information. Mr. Rodriguez was negligent in his application by failing to provide accurate information about the pergola's location. Furthermore, he misspoke at a meeting stating the pergola would be, quote, 2 feet closer to his building on his property, unquote. This undeniable fact is that the pergola is located on town property. The buyer map, I'm going to give you their map.
You can hear words so far, but no picture.
There's the bare map. It shows the property line. Here's the original map, and it shows the property line. This is older. It does not have the pergola. You can see quite clearly how much of the pergola is on his property. Furthermore, look, from the property line to the double yellow line is the town of Manchester's property and the right-of-way. It's a 33-foot right-of-way that was discussed with the bike proposal, and I've double-checked all of our maps say it's 33 feet wide. So the undeniable fact is that the pergola is located on the town property. The bare map, which was provided to Act 250, unequivocally shows the pergola on town property. Mr. Rodriguez is, I think I read all that, sorry. The town's stance that the permit cannot be revisited is incorrect. Vermont State Law 123, revocations of permits subsection 1 clearly states that a permit can be revoked if the permit holder submitted material false or inaccurate information. This is precisely what Mr. Rodriguez did. Furthermore, Manchester zoning ordinance 2.915 revoking permits or approval grants the zoning administrator the authority to rescind and omit it. While I don't necessarily believe this permit needs to be outright revoked and the pergola removed, the town must address the fact that this permit is issued based on inaccurate information and that the pergola is on town property. We have clear pin locations on both sides of Mr. Rodriguez's property confirming the boundary. The town of Manchester continues to ignore these facts and make what I believe are false claims regarding its inability to act. Finally, in addition to resolving the permit for Christos and Thai Basil, and what we did when we used your lawn in front of the Cold Cow, we had to provide you with that. Furthermore, the state of Vermont highly suggests to towns to get this information. They want you to have a permittee's insurance. So we request that the select board acknowledge these facts and initiate appropriate action to address the pergola status, ensure compliance with town ordinance, and uphold the integrity of our permitting process. Regarding Mr. Murphy's second bullet point, where he asserts that the freestanding sign is located on Mr. Rodriguez's property and not on town property, I must respectfully disagree. The evidence clearly indicates otherwise. Let me refer to Mr. Rodriguez's own deeded information, the 60 degrees, 34, 30 west on a course parallel to and 33 feet northerly, this is all in quotes, of said center line on US Route 7A, distance 115 feet to railroad spikes set in place and marking a corner, which point marks the southwesterly corner of the parcel herein conveyed and southeasterly corner of land now or formerly Manchester Pancake House. Further supporting this, I have an email from Ryan Downey stating, quote, please find the original boundary survey maps of the property you were asking about. After reading the deed and reviewing the survey, it is my opinion that the land located between the center line of Route 7A and the boundary described in the deed must belong to either the state of Vermont or town of Manchester, unquote. This land has in fact been transferred to the town of Manchester and constitutes part of the public right-of-way. Therefore, the freestanding sign is indeed located on town property within the public right-of-way. While Mr. Murphy is correct that this matter has been appealed to the environmental court and is currently pending, the sign still presents an issue, but I won't go into that. So you have a responsibility to make sure that it's clear and it's not a safety hazard. We issued you to consider it, but it's already in court. But I just wanted to point out that he is inaccurate with his information in that letter. Mr. Murphy correctly points out the hearing recess order, which directs Mr. Rodriguez to provide supplemental evidence, including G, asks for a statement from the town regarding location of the existing freestanding sign located in the town's right-of-way. If Mr. Rodriguez requests this letter from the town, I formally request a copy of it as well. My original request, the letter that I gave that you read, Ivan, that said there was a whole bunch of stuff on, my original request to the town regarding the Act 250 permit amendment specifically addressed the pergola, kitchen expansion, and the deck violation. It is deeply concerning that the town ignored my explicit request to withhold certificates of compliance until all permit requirements were met. Yet, and I sent him a couple of letters, yet Mr. Brabazon proceeded to issue these certificates. We have, as a result, been compelled to appeal this decision. The select board must address the fact that the town issued certificates of compliance despite outstanding issues being open with the town. The ZA has a responsibility to make sure all conditions are completed before issuing certificates of compliance. Mr. Murphy's final bullet point to me concerning certificates of compliance is frankly alarming and highlights a significant issue within our town zoning administration. When I initially inquired via email to Mr. Murphy, Mr. Brabazon, and Mr. Schroeder about how to appeal a certificate of compliance, Mr. Murphy responded with an email that was, to say the least, confusing to me. He stated, quote, I've attached the original permits that were issued that you have previously referenced. These are the permits that were closed out last week with the issuance of the certificate of completion. As you can see, the appeal dates for these permits expired many years ago, 2013, 15, and 18. That would have been the opportunity for someone to appeal the permit decision. Certificates of compliance are not appealable as they are just a closure of the permit conditions, end quote. I was deeply confused by this statement. My own research consistently indicated that certificates of compliance are indeed appealable. It wasn't until I spoke with our attorney after the last select board meeting I attended that he confirmed all of this, that certificate of compliances are absolutely appealable. Following this clarification, I promptly informed Mr. Murphy via email that his information was incorrect, and as a result, I had potentially missed a critical deadline. Only then did he reach out to the town attorney and subsequently acknowledge that I was correct all along. While I appreciate this small apology, I am utterly disgusted by the entire zoning situation in our town. This incident reveals a profound lack of understanding regarding fundamental procedures with the zoning administrator's office. If the zoning administrator, his assistant, and the town manager do not know or understand that a certificate of compliance can be appealed, and that such an appeal must be made in a timely fashion, it raises serious questions about their competency to run the office. I believe the select board needs to conduct a thorough review of the zoning department's operations and ensure that staff are adequately trained and informed on all relevant procedures and state laws. This is essential to maintain public trust and ensure fair and lawful administration of our town zoning ordinances. I'm still requesting a letter from you guys to provide to us for the Act 250 permit amendment so we can submit as evidence. I'm not asking for a lot. This is what I'm asking for. 1, Mr. Rodriguez prepared an inaccurate property map and pergola location. The map that he gave you was a map of his dining room, and that was it, the outdoor seating area. It didn't have any property lines, nothing on it. Please confirm that Mr. Rodriguez provided the town of Manchester with the inaccurate map that misrepresented the property line. Specifically confirm that the map incorrectly depicted the property line as coinciding with the sidewalk, when in fact the pergola is located on town-owned property, or that he failed to point out the property line. That's it. 1. 2, kitchen expansion and deck violation. Please confirm that the kitchen expansion was not constructed according to the plans approved by the town of Manchester. There's a physical structure under his deck and under his stairs. Please confirm that Mr. Rodriguez violated the terms of the permit by expanding the deck. The deck is, he was granted a certain distance and the deck is bigger than it's supposed to be, and it goes into our easement and right of way for the parking lot. And just confirm that the deck's footprint was supposed to remain unchanged and he changed the footprint. That's it.
I want to understand. I guess the letter that you're requesting from the town is something that you want to use for the purposes of your appeal.
Correct. Ron is presently trying to get an Act 250 permit amendment. And I believe I told you that with the pergola, Lee Crone allowed the outdoor seating, right? Well, A, it's on the town's property. B, you guys allowed this outdoor seating. He doesn't have parking spaces for the seating. So he never should have been allowed the pergola or the seating outside. Now, his daughter's moved in. We have 3 cars for him. He has his Mercedes. He has a Volkswagen that sits in one parking spot since July 4th of last year with 3 flat tires. His kid moved in, so there's 3 cars out of his 12. Then you have the employees, right? You have 2 to 3 cars that show up daily that park in the parking lot. So out of the 12 allocated parking spots, he's down to 6 that could be used for the restaurant. That means that they're only allowed 15, I think 12 and a half seats, 13 seats. Who wants to have a restaurant with 13 seats? right? I mean, at times that parking lot is full. And like we miss out on business.
Okay, the last time you were here, you requested a letter and letter was drafted and and you've taken issue with several of the bullet points in the letter. It's with, you have way more knowledge on this subject than I do.
Mhm.
The town manager and the zoning administrator have way more knowledge on this subject than I do, and the rest of the board, and we're kind of stuck in the middle on trying to figure out the proper procedure to address your concerns. But at the same time, with our in-house experts telling us that most of these things have been addressed and that many of what's being identified as outstanding issues have been addressed and resolved and are in compliance with the permit. So it makes it very difficult for us to figure out how to move forward with this. I understand your request for us to conduct a formal review. And I've had discussions with the town manager. I've had discussions with the zoning administrator. And when I ask the questions, they have what I feel to be good answers to those questions. And then, you know, we get to the next step and you come back and are pointing out the same issues that we thought we addressed. And it's as far as the sign being on town property,
That's being appealed. I'm not,
yeah,
but I just want to bring it up. He shouldn't say,
Time.
he shouldn't say,
yeah, there's so many signs that are within the town right away down through that stretch that that's a tough one, and I don't know where that's going to go. As far as the pergola being on town property, I think that was acknowledged. Am I correct?
I think it was in the letter there.
Yeah, yeah, and the parking issue, that's something that I haven't really pursued as far as how many spaces are being utilized for personal use, how many spaces are being utilized for employees, and what that leaves for seating. But it was approved with a number of spaces. I mean, you're part of that agreement. And my understanding of that permit is that anytime that the town or others have gone into count seats and make sure that it's in compliance, that it is in compliance. And I have asked and have been informed that when these compliance visits are made, there is no advance warning. That town staff shows up and counts and that the number of seats is in compliance with the town local permit. So, you know, we're hearing a bit of conflicting evidence on this. And I'm going to get back to what one member of the board said last time, is that this is all involved with an appeal process. It's all involved with potential for litigation. And so we have to be very careful how we approach this. And from my perspective, town staff appears to have answered your question. As far as the letter, I don't know if it would be very difficult and put a number of these things fall under the purview of the zoning administrator by statute. The select board does not have the statutory authority to override a zoning administrator's decision or a development review board decision, or to make comments on that. They're separately authorized branches of government where one can't step on the other. Now, the zoning administrator is a town employee, so there's portions of that employment that fall under the purview of the town manager. And because we're a town manager form of government, that's under his purview, not ours. I will once again, I understand your request. I will once again approach town staff and try to come to some sort of resolution to this. But given the history, I'm not convinced that the resolution to which we arrive will meet your expectations.
I agree, because Mr. Barabazan just doesn't want to deal. These permits were issued a long time ago, but he has the ability to deal with them, and he doesn't want to. I mean, I have proof.
I mean, he's been very responsive to me every time I've asked a question and has been very cooperative in trying to provide me with information. Most of this has been because there was so much back and forth on different levels. Most of it's being funneled through Scott at this point, the town manager, because it just works better if we have a focal point that can work through all the moving pieces of this.
But the letter he wrote me,
will once again have a conversation with Scott, with Peter, and try to get an answer. I will once again, it may be a very brief answer, but I'll make sure that you're aware of what that is in writing. And beyond that, I don't think there's anything that we're going to resolve here this evening. But it's good to see your smiling face.
believe this with you, so you can think about it. I don't think the town manager should tell somebody that a sign is on somebody's property when it isn't. And all he had to do was go to the maps and look to see that it's in the town right away and on town property, Scott.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care. We're under public comments. This is anything that anybody wants to talk about that's not on the agenda. Are there any other public comments?
No.
Hi, everyone. My name's Anita Sheldon. I am the town clerk here in Manchester. Hopefully you are all aware that I am here. I believe I respectfully requested to be added to a future select board agenda via email to all select board members and Scott as town manager. I'm here before you, the Manchester Select Board, to request an opportunity to address personnel matters in executive session with the select board in its entirety. The information that I would like to share with the board as an entirety falls under the evaluation of an official or of an employee. And that would not require the substantial disadvantage threshold be met to enter into executive session. I have reached out to VLCT. VLCT has alerted me that I may request, but it is up to the board to make the decision whether or not they want to discuss my concerns in open session or in executive session, which is why I'm here tonight. As you know, I take my position as a municipal clerk seriously. And sometimes, as I've discovered over the years, and as many of you have as well, sometimes to a fault. I am before you today, not only as the municipal clerk, but also as a concerned, lifelong member and resident of this community that I get to call home. I've been fortunate enough to grow up in this community, from here to here. My son was less than 24 hours old the first time he stepped foot. I brought him into town hall, I should say. This place is really near and dear to my heart. And so are the people in this community who helped raise me. I've been fortunate enough to grow up in this small, close-knit community, and I'm fortunate enough to still call Manchester home. I began serving the municipality at the young age of 22, dedicating over 15 years of my life to this municipality. And I'm proud to say that I get to serve my hometown. Whenever I go away, no matter where I go, my favorite part is telling everybody how I get to serve my hometown and my community. I worked with many public officials from various backgrounds and upbringings over the years, including native Vermonters, newly established residents, new or newish public servants, and longtime public servants, like our select board chair. I've experienced pre-pandemic and post-pandemic differences, some for better, some for worse, and we have to face that. As elected select board members, you answer directly to the voters. They're your bosses. As an elected municipal clerk, I answer directly to the voters. When the voters come to me and ask me a question, I have to provide an answer, whether it's a comfortable answer or an uncomfortable answer, whether I like the answer or I don't like the answer, whether it's going to shed light on things that we don't necessarily want to talk about, or shed light on things that are uncomfortable to talk about, but we need to continue moving this municipality forward in the right direction. And I know we're all capable of doing that. And I know all of our hearts are in the right spot. But we need a little bit of oomph behind our hearts being in the right spot. That's why I'm here tonight. In my humble opinion, it is imperative, especially under the political climate we are in right now, that we, as the elected officials of this municipality, serving the people that we serve, whether we like them or we don't, whether they're our friends or they're not, whether we agree with them or not, we still serve everyone. And we need to get back to serving everyone, no matter what our personal or professional beliefs are. I believe it is imperative for us as a team, the town of Manchester, elected officials, that we show our voters that I am fulfilling the duties and responsibilities of a municipal clerk. And as you are as select board members. As an elected official, I believe I am the only elected official in the municipality that has office hours Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. I get to see a lot more. Some scary things, some not so scary things, some amazing and very beautiful things. We get to issue marriage licenses in the clerk's office. It's amazing. We get to brag about this amazing community that we get to call home. I want to know about their special day, why they chose us, why they came here to spend in upwards of $100,000 on a ceremony, why they want to bring all of their family here. They see who we are, and what we want to preserve. While preserving it, we also need to move forward. Sometimes we forget that. As outlined in my email dated June 11th, 2025 to select board members and the town manager, I've confirmed with VLCT that I may request an opportunity to enter executive session, and the board may grant that request, or the board may deny that request. by a majority vote. I respectfully request an invitation to a future Select Board executive session and respectfully request a response from the Select Board by July 17th, 2025, which is a month. Before concluding, I did receive Scott's email to the board stating that he wanted, or he would suggest specific reasons. I am fully prepared to disclose those reasons in open session, which would nearly eliminate the need to go into executive session. If the board would like me to move forward with that request, I will happily share them now. If the board would like to think about how they would like to handle this and get back to me prior to July 17th, I don't expect an answer tonight, but I would greatly appreciate a response. So thank you for your time and your consideration, and I hope we're able to sit down at the table as a collective electorate or elected members of our electorate and discuss what we need to discuss. Thank you.
I understand that any discussion of personnel issues can be sensitive and most of it. It's why the state allows us the opportunity to go into executive session to keep it out of the public discourse. So I think without getting into particulars, I think we probably should respectfully and respectful of your position, accept your requests to go into executive session based on a discussion of a public official. Is that?
Okay, yeah, so you don't want me to give details now?
I don't know what the details are, obviously, and I don't know who the individual is, and I think
I'm going to take the credit. I am not trying to point fingers at anyone. I would like to sit down with the select board in executive session to make sure that I am doing my part as an elected official. I understand that I cannot do the part of everyone in the municipality, nor does my salary expect me to do that. But again, I'm willing to share as much or as little as you would like.
It sounds to me,
Heidi just joined the meeting.
oh,
good.
hi Heidi, welcome. I don't know when did you just join?
Just came on.
Okay, Heidi, I wanted to bring you up to speed a little bit. Anita is here. She's made a request of the board to go into executive session for her to discuss the appointment of a public official or review of an employee, potentially both. Those kind of things are allowable under executive session. And understand, not knowing any of the particulars, I'm a little bit afraid to open up the discussion in an open meeting and saying, ooh, oh boy, we should have done that.
That's a very smart thing for
I
you.
think
to
executive
say.
session is the fairest way for everybody involved to have a discussion on this. And so I think that the board, and this is just one member talking, that the board should accept your request and schedule an executive session for you to talk with the board. Now, because it's an executive session item, Scott, that wouldn't have to be on the agenda. And
You could put executive session if needed, and then you would have to declare what reason you're going in for.
Well, you're here
Which we
tonight.
well, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
If we have an executive session if needed on tonight's agenda, and if Anita's willing.
I'm prepared, but I don't know if you
I-
want to err on the side of caution and warn
A
them.
little bit of it will be somewhat dependent on how late we go, and Heidi would have to attend on someone's phone probably.
Right.
But we can do that. We've done it before. So, let's see how the meeting goes.
I did not, honestly, I did not expect to go into executive session tonight.
Yeah.
To me,
It may make more sense for us to be prepared and try to address it at our next meeting.
it's like, I'm,
Okay.
like I said, something by July 17th, just so I know that I am on the radar. I haven't fallen off the bandwagon. I would greatly
I
appreciate
think by consensus.
Yeah.
If we expect to have this discussion at our next meeting and under executive session. We will do
it.
that.
Really appreciate that.
Thank you, Anita. Any other public comments? Anything that's not on the agenda? Mike, anything tonight?
No,
Uh,
I'm here on an item that is on the agenda.
Okay. All right, then we will move to the agenda, and the first order of business, agenda item 4 is approve the minutes from May 20th and June 3rd. One set of these is an amended. Correct. Set of minutes. Right. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from select board meetings, the amended version of 5:20 and 6:30. 6:3, sorry, not 6:30, yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and the minutes are approved for, oh, Heidi's here.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
All right. That's you, I'm gonna deem that that's unanimous. Thank you. Liquor license renewals, Scott, we've got,
Just the one, Nong's Kitchen at 4659 Main Street, Class 1, Ron Rodriguez, applicant.
That's the applicant.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, we're good?
Good.
I don't think it's relevant to the issues that have been presented at this point. Because those are under,
Renewal, yeah, it's a renewal of liquor license.
yeah. I'll make a motion to renew Nong's Kitchen 4659 Main Street, Class 1 license.
Second,
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Heidi, aye.
Aye.
Heidi with
Aye.
an aye.
Yeah, okay. That's unanimous. Moving on to the next agenda item, possibly reappoint Constable Patrick Owens and Treasurer Brian Vogel for 1 year.
Respective, yeah, roles, they both said that they would do it again.
They're both willing to continue in that.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to reappoint Constable Patrick Owens and Treasurer Brian Bogle for 1 year term.
I'll second.
Seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Once again, unanimous. Okay, Scott, the next one is to review the window dressers funding request.
Yes, you have a copy of the initial request from Jim Southgiver, and then a follow-up email explaining the amount of people that they help in Manchester. And they're requesting 500 like they did last year. Now, last year was a different situation where we were actually purchasing services from them. And so this is actually slightly different request. It's more of a just straight monetary allocation if you request, or appropriation type of request, if you will, but they're looking for another 500.
So,
Go ahead.
say, would this normally come,
That's what I was gonna say.
Right, through
End
the
of
through the
year?
budget, yeah, it would normally come through the budget process. The smaller appropriation requests
Right. That would be voted on instead. I mean, I feel uncomfortable just throwing $500 out.
It's not fair to other.
We have voted appropriations at town meeting. They're actually small.
That's right.
Yes. We make them go through the process. It's not that I'm opposed to this, but it sets it's a non-municipal entity making a request for appropriation that has not been approved by town meeting. I struggle with it a little bit.
However, as I remember, the select board in the past had, at my dad's request, for instance, supported the Loyalty Day Parade, and that was not a voted appropriation. So I think same with Memorial Day. Right? Those are line items on our budget. We've moved GNAT, right, out of voted appropriation. I'm just throwing it out there that we have in the past done different.
But that was in the budget discussion too.
Yeah, correct. It was part of the budget. Right. But I mean, it wasn't like a, well, actually, I don't even remember, because I remember the first time he came and asked, it was in the middle of the year.
Yeah,
But I mean, that was 30 years ago. So,
that was here.
yeah, I know. The first time, the first West was here.
Yeah,
We've opened our wallets before, right here at the meeting.
we have.
Which I'm happy to slap a 20 on the table. See if anybody
That
else
doesn't
wants
get
to.
us there.
No, it's
So
that's a C spot each.
I mean, it would be nice to get it into the voted appropriations every year. It's a worthy.
Yeah,
cause.
it looks like this is probably gonna be an annual request. Do they qualify for a voted appropriation?
I haven't seen any of the paperwork.
Yeah. I don't know. What's that? What's the entity?
window dressers. Window dressers.
Would it be considered a social service agency? I'm not really trying to make it not properly, but I see it.
It's,
Happy to reach out to the Secretary of State and a response from the elections division to confirm. We should go through social service agency.
Is this the parent organization? It is a nonprofit.
Yeah,
It
it's
Yeah,
out of Maine, right? Isn't that what even the
I don't
letter
know
said?
whether.
I think.
oh, is that, is,
Yeah, they're from Rockland, Maine.
Rockland, Maine.
Yeah,
Volunteer-driven nonprofit organization. Doesn't say if it's.
because if we wrote a check, we would have to describe that we want it directed to Manchester, to Bennington County or Manchester.
I think that should be included in the vote appropriations town meeting personally. I doubt that they're gonna go away because we didn't give them $500 right this red hot minute.
yeah, I mean, when you go down to the smaller paragraph, let's see, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth paragraph where the official request is, this letter is to request the town of Manchester support our 2025 Northshire window dressers effort with another donation of $500. This is the same amount we are requesting from other towns, either through requests like this or through petition requests to be voted on by town residents. Interesting. And it's interesting that the donation would be sent, I mean, we're talking about Northshire window dressers in the request, but the donation would be sent to Rockland, Maine. Which,
Yeah, then you have to designate that the donation is for Northshire.
Yeah, it says it the next
Oh.
line.
okay,
That's just who's clearing the check.
got it.
So, I mean, Jim understands that, I think, appropriations. I mean, he's been on the select board and endorsed it, so, I mean, he's basically implying that he is expecting these to go through to a petition request, meaning they would be on a ballot, but if this amount of money, they technically wouldn't need Would they, what isn't it, 2,500? They cut off
Below
for,
that, so.
yeah.
24.
This isn't a request for right this minute. It's just to get on to the voter,
I mean, it says 2025 though, so.
Yeah, I read it as being asked for now,
That's the way I'm reading it.
but I also.
Let's do it in fall.
Also read it like he's willing to go through the process for next year.
Yeah. But asking for a donation.
Doesn't hurt to ask, right?
Answer. It's a tough one. I mean, there's so many organizations that could come to us asking for, requesting that we make a donation and offering to go through the process for next year. It's to get on as a voter appropriation.
You could be opening a can of worms.
Yeah.
So he seems to acknowledge that. He's willing to.
might not want to, some taxpayer may not want to support window dressers. I don't know why. But I think they should go through the same process. It would be unfair. It seems like they're willing to do that. So we just,
So actually, this would be a 500 additional, so that means the amount that they're actually would be totally requesting would be larger than that, because we've already given them, because it's saying an additional 500, it's not saying.
No, that's in addition to last year.
Last year's donation was
He's
500.
considering last year's.
They did work here at the town
Right,
hall. last
that's right, that's right. So we.
It was kind of a different, I mean, that was part of the justification. And of course, they're not doing work here on municipal property.
Right.
That's Heidi. Muting her.
Heidi, any thoughts on this?
I think we should vote on it like we do, or have it be on the voted appropriations ballot like we have everything else.
I suspected that would be your take on this.
we need a motion.
Well, we don't. I mean,
They're just,
I'll just get back to him and say, respectfully decline right now. Just, well, we'll encourage you to go through the process for next year.
right.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, this is one that we talked about at our last meeting to review and possibly amend the town's fee schedule. Scott?
So you've got in your packets the various fee schedules that we have currently. And I kind of started working on this and got through most of it. Anticipated Heidi not making it back to the meeting, because I know she wanted to be involved in it. But if she wants to participate this way, we can do so as is now. Many of these rates have changed over the last couple of years in piecemeal. And ones with highlighted in yellow from the general fee schedule, addendum A, you'll see under vending, for instance. We addressed that earlier this year and changed that, and the dog license also. So some of these are not in need of changes unless you want to change them again. Planning and zoning fee schedule, the highlighted fees in yellow were actually changed last year in September. Unbeknownst to yourself and myself, believe it or not, the zoning department went over this and didn't get it approved through the select board. So those rates were changed when we brought on the software program, the new software program. Never made an effort to pay for those. And those are the rates we're using right now, except for that top one, the major project hearing application fee. All the fees are $300. not that 350, so I don't know where that 350 came from. But the ones in pink are the ones that are proposing change to. Certificate of occupancy, or that's at 25, they want to propose $100. The certificate occupancy complex is now at 50 and they want to go to 175. These take time. They have to go back, usually back out to the site. Complex example would be like the brewery that's being built now. Something like that. And a simple one is just like a house that's been built or something, an addition or a deck. The zoning compliance notice application fee is $10, which is really low. They want to raise it to 50. Attorneys often use that to do
Sure.
the searches rather than sometimes come in or go online in the town clerk's office. And sometimes they do it as a double check. Mapping, $10, extremely low. They recommend 25. Yeah. So those are those two. Parks and Rec we addressed last year for the most part, with the pools and the fees for the pools, and the day passes. So those are okay as is. Talking with Brian today, we talked about the field rentals, especially Eckhart and McClellan fields. He feels those extremely low, the cost, rental cost per hour. And so we'd be recommending changes to those. But I don't have dollar figures here in front of me today, so we just kind of put a hold on it. I thought Heidi wasn't going to be here to address it. And then the final one that you wanted to add was the payment in lieu of parking. So I've gotten several answers from various engineers, and there's no hard and fast number yet, so I'm still digging into that a little bit more. You know, some of them falling back on the 2,000 figure, which I just kind of think is, you know, a softball number they're throwing out there. So it's not a specific, this is how much it's going to cost to build type of thing. So I hope to have more information next time we look at this.
I do remember talking about the rate changes in planning zoning for those because of the software.
We didn't know, I don't think, when it was actually gonna.
I think we sort of remember going through those numbers someday.
And I could be mistaken on that. I didn't go back and check the minutes. I just
I remember
talking with Peter about
specifically in relation to the
software.
covering the costs of
Yeah.
the software.
Yeah.
And I sort of remembered the 175 going to 3 on the DRB hearing. But again, maybe something we can find.
So beyond I think we asked this when the last time this came about, was, are there any other fees that we're aware of that are not being represented on this addendum?
So that question led to the question by Heidi about leases. Like what leases are out there that we have, especially given the fact that we just terminated the lease with the sale of Depot Street properties. So that's gone now. So we have a lease with the village for their use of the space in the county courthouse. That's $800 a month. That was changed 2 years ago from $580. We have an interior lease at the county courthouse with Grace Initiative. That's $600 a month, and that's a month-to-month lease. And they're aware of it and would be ready to move out if needed. We have a lease with Range Rover for the use of the airport road properties. That's a contracted amount right now. Has a built-in escalator each year. And then the food cupboard here is $600 a month with a 3% increase each year based on the CPI. And the rescue squad building, that's a contracted amount also. So there's no flexible on that. So those are the, I was saying, leases that we have. We do have a possession, a license to occupy lease, if you call it that. It's on the Sweeney property. So that's just a set amount, cover costs.
So
Tax.
would would it be? I mean, obviously these could change if, if, like, for instance, Grace Initiative, if they were month to month. I mean, that perhaps it wouldn't necessarily dictate which space or which entity was owning it, but what the current rate was for that space. Right? I'm just thinking if, let's say, someone did, they were locked, we had an entity that was locked in, like say the village, and it came up that, they were gonna move out and we were gonna lease it again. Would that mean that we would need to adjust the fee schedule at that point if we were gonna raise the rents?
I think probably the lease revenue schedule ought to be its own separate thing and not be merged with the fee schedule, because they're two different things and it complicates it and makes it more difficult to manage, I think. But we should have a schedule for all of our various leases that we can review. And it was just what you just read to us. It was perfect.
Right. On its own separate page.
Yeah, something separate from the fees.
Yeah.
Fees are something different.
Well, why don't I suggest this, that, let me finish getting those numbers that were incomplete tonight. And we'll look at it at the next meeting.
Yeah.
And I can also give you a list of the outstanding leases and the terms at that time.
There's a lot of fees and I can't think of anything off the top of my head to answer your question.
Yeah.
For which we're charging fees that's not on here. Anita.
I'm sorry.
I don't, it's very irritating. No, I'm trying not to watch. But it seems like this is a pretty complete fee schedule for the town.
When we do go to the lease schedule, I think we should have set rates, and we should have a rate for nonprofits versus rate for other for-profit entities too.
I'm looking at what type of leases we might have coming up we don't have now. And we don't have the Depot Street property. We do have the county courthouse, but there's a committee that you're on that's working to revitalize that and basically further on down our agenda, come into a lease with them for that building. So, I don't know if we would have any new leases coming on board in the near future.
Yeah. But just as I wouldn't even know where the starting point would be for some of those. It seems almost arbitrary the way some of it was done. And so if we had a set starting point for nonprofits, set starting point, at least we could, if something came up for some reason.
So hard.
Well, and that's the other thing, the market fluctuates so much. You're not going to get, if you really want to lease something, you're not going to get somebody in there if you're pricing it based on a past market that was so high.
Yeah, in addition to, like,
Heidi has her hand up.
if you're working with a nonprofit, a lot of times you're trying to assist them finding a location. So you almost say, how much can you pay?
Heidi.
I would argue that should actually be a voted appropriation then, if we're gonna give money or like a lease agreement that's favorable to a not-for-profit, we're actually making a donation. So I think that's actually a bit of a slippery slope.
Yeah, but then we have to vote on the villages. Like the village has occupied that space for years.
We basically doubled it.
Yeah, it went from 580 to 800.
And the other good thing was covering the costs of, I think, some of our overhead at the courthouse, right? Or maybe all of it, I don't know. Electric, I mean, not maintenance, but
You mean the 800?
Yeah, electric, heat, I don't know what the heat is, probably a lot more.
More.
But the town, the village pays too.
No, they're paying this a flat fee. We absorb all the utility costs.
Oh. I mean, at minimum, I think for the two spaces at the courthouse and with the food coverage, it'd just be nice to just calculate what we're doing in a square foot rate. So if we're in the ballpark of what other places are going, and then go from there.
Okay.
I think it's pretty easy.
Yeah, I think it is gonna be a per case basis now, but I don't think you can set a schedule for leases. It's market driven. And it would fall under real estate discussion under executive session.
All right, well, let me bring the other fees back to you next meeting and we'll get an update, the lease structure. So you have a list anyway, currently.
I'm sure there's
get
precedent.
some
somewhere
current
some
information.
other town has already sorted this out in a way that we might replicate. But
Or we could be a leader in this.
well, really, we could be actually, you're right.
Okay, so we'll pick this up again at our next meeting. Scott and I had a little discussion, just a short while back, relative to agenda item number 9. This is the town's share of employee health and dental costs for non-union employees. It's over time, just recently, we approved changes to the police union and the non-union police department staff for their share of health and dental insurance. And we've always tried to keep it all consistent throughout the whole organization. So Scott, maybe you could give us the details on this?
Yeah, so I mean, our health insurance, we had to commit by June 1st, and this came up, right around that time, this discussion. And basically what we've done in the past, or what this select board and other select boards have done in the past, is try to keep the non-union people close to what the union is getting through their negotiations. And in this case, you'll see the cost of the health insurance to do that, to go from a 95% portion to a 97% portion. And then the dental is going from 90 to 100. So the union negotiated that. And we gave that to the non-union management team over there also. So I feel strongly that the rest of the full-time staff should also get the same.
And in our conversation, I agreed with Scott. Of course, it's a board decision, but it makes sense to keep it consistent throughout the organization.
So it would probably be unpopular to say they pay 100% and we pay 0.
We want to keep our staff.
I mean, retention it's all about
It's
retention.
all about retention, yeah.
I need a motion.
Well, actually, our last paychecks reflected, or our last.
Only because I had to commit by June 1st, and knowing that we could, if this board decided not to do that, we could reverse that.
Yeah. So you need
Yes.
an action.
Correct.
I move to adopt the employee health and dental costs for non-union employees as provided to union employees.
That's good.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous.
And just before we go on that topic, I just want to lay the groundwork for our budget discussions. When we get in the fall, we should also keep this in mind, that we want to stay close on other things. Salaries, wages, to the union, because it's important. And the staff, they understand it. We just completed an employee survey, and some of the comments, some of the anonymous comments mentioned this about, union wages being higher than the non-union wages. So I want to keep that competitive, at least close to that, so we don't create a haves and have-not separation.
And of course, we all know that retention of experienced staff is more cost effective than new staff ever. I mean, it's-
Replacement.
No question.
Okay, here we are, county courthouse lease request.
Yeah, so this kind of came out of the blue. Maybe you know more than I do, no? Okay.
No, I mean, I didn't know that there was, that the attorney for the,
No.
what is the name?
Brian,
Yeah, myself.
I said,
Yeah, no, I didn't know, but I think it's a good idea to tackle it and see how, I don't know how.
yeah, so.
He offers framework.
No, and Merrill's like, she wanted guidance from you guys because she didn't want to be the person to frame the terms.
My only, in discussions before I got on the board about this, I think with Tom Deck, was if the town did this and any kind of lease and the entity fell apart, there has to be a way for it to revert back to the town. I think that would be important. So something like a 99-year lease for $1 or something, they're assuming, the entity is assuming all the upkeep and maintenance and repairs and restoration and programming and everything else. So they're taking it on. I don't know how, insurance, things like that have to probably be proven, and it goes back to the attorneys at that point, right?
So, I mean,
Have you ever?
yeah, the question is like, what do we want out of this? Do we want to give them control of the building and say, here, it's your building for 99 years, as long as you're still an entity, and here's the cost? Is that what you want to do, or do you want to maintain some sort of control over it where you could rent a space through the Grace Initiative or other groups like that? I'm just looking for guidance on how to frame it.
I would think that something from the board of the select board would have to always be on their board and during that period, whatever the period is.
Right, and those are the type of things we want to build into this league.
Right. So,
Do you want me to come back with you just with some bullet point suggestions for inclusion in the lease?
or the attorney should generate a lease. I mean, I think we should have them, Brian and Merrill, put together something.
Well, we have to give them some guidance.
Oh, well,
We can ask for everything up front if that's the way you want to do it, dealing with.
I don't know how the issue of what we went through with the easement,
The grant application.
whether that would have been, whether they would have had to come to us and for permission, for example, if they had the lease in place, I think they probably would have made that. They wouldn't have had to come to us, I don't think.
It depends on the terms of the lease, but yes, you could build it that way, here's your building for 99 years, as long as you keep making the payments and maintain the structure. And if they go to the grant application, through the grant application, they probably wouldn't have to get the owner's signatures because they have a 99-year lease on.
Right.
Term of the grant would be shorter than that.
Oh, I mean, we need to come up with those answers. I think back to 1984 and Ted Demetrio, who was the CEO of Wallace Computer, came to town and we were talking about finalizing an agreement for a tax incentive package to bring him here, and one of the select board members said something along the lines of, well, we need to have the attorneys put something together and tell us how to do this. And Ted said something that I've never forgotten, and Mike, you'll get a kick out of this. He said, I don't hire attorneys to make decisions for them. I make the decisions. I tell them what I want to do, and they figure out how to get there. And I've always remembered that, and it's true. I mean, our attorneys don't know what our expectations are for what this agreement should be, and those are some really good questions. Do we turn over the whole thing and they get to lease sublet and get the revenue from the other tenants that are in there? Do we keep a portion, keep the overall control? Do we get the revenue from the tenants? That's a very basic thing that we need to figure out going in. I assume there's good arguments on both sides. If the lease arrangement with the organization that's going to be leasing the courthouse from us is structured in a way where they're able to have sublet and all that. I mean, it takes a lot off our plate as long as they're paying us enough in the general terms of the lease for them to absorb that revenue on the other side. I could be talked into that.
No, it'd be great cost savings to our taxpayers if we didn't have to include that in our budget.
And I think also we have to be careful that the onus of any problems that come up in construction don't come back on the taxpayers.
Yeah.
So you can separate out all of the work that's going to be done and kind of protect it into their bubble versus it impending anything.
So just in a general sense, does it make the most sense for us to enter into this 99-year lease agreement where we shift everything onto them and we're compensated for that? We have to maintain some level of oversight, which Greg is suggesting there should be a board member on the
If
committee.
you're gonna though allow them to make changes to the building, you better have a bond to ensure that they don't walk away from it half done.
Yeah.
Well, those are the things that I was alluding to, that attorneys would have to, protect us from. I wasn't saying, let's tell them, oh, just make it up and we'll go along with what you're saying, but things like what Mike just said and other items that they would say, oh, well, you'll want to make sure you've got this.
I also think that, obviously you just said it, it's like the not having this on the rolls for the budget, on the taxpayers' backs. I think looking at what the outlook for this building is going to be, it has a lot of possibilities, but its uses are very specific. They're not like, it's not like you're going to go out and get, I just say this, but you're not going to get a hotel to move in there. You're not going to sell to a developer unless they're going to be spending a significant amount. And to keep the historical provenance of the building, it's, has a very specific niche setting that it's not going to be able to travel very far out of that. So to say, we would, if let's say that this opportunity with this organization wasn't on the table, who would be willing to step up and buy it? It's a very, very limited set of folks. And the price, given the amount of work to preserve it, it's going to be not a huge sum of money that we would be able to recoup from it. So to look at it from a cost saving, a benefit to the community, but also a cost savings to taxpayers, if we're simply, yes, putting all the things in place to make sure that it continues how we intend it to be used. We make sure that they don't get in over their heads and start doing something and then walk away with something half done. But at the same time, say, like, we're spending X on utilities and whatever other costs that are, insurance around those effectively are going to be removed from our expenditures, which we don't currently really have any to speak of revenue. I mean, we have, a couple of
bucks,
and not offsetting the entire amount of money that we need to spend on. So
I think we've also already given them an indication that we were behind
the idea,
and they ran with that, and then Lori and I got really heavily involved in the board work, which is great. And I think nobody else has come along in the time that we've owned it with this amount of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And if they don't do this work and we wait another couple years and it's gonna be on us.
It's a few $1,000,000.
Yeah.
They're very, very motivated.
Restore.
To make
Yeah.
this work. So,
I do think, though, that there's a period of time during the construction phase where they won't be able to incur money, like from renting the spaces and all of that. So there's gonna be a 2 to
Yeah.
3 year period. So
It's a ream,
think about, like it's gonna be what it is today while it's being renovated and
and even the grant itself is a reimbursement grant, so they've got to pay for everything up front.
I think as far as like, I don't
And
know,
that's
just
just
throwing it
one
out
of
there,
many,
I think the town still needs
you
to
know,
participate for the next, say, 2 years in the same way that we're doing things now. Keeping the building heated and that piece of it and collecting the rent from the village for the office space.
You're
While
not
all the
entering into the lease,
fundraising
yeah.
and I think it could just be part of the lease.
I know,
I don't know, I'm
maybe.
just throwing it out
yeah, well,
there,
those are
because
good. questions.
without having money coming in, there's no money to pay to heat the place while it's under construction. And I don't know if it would be
Yeah.
like, we would be
Yeah, I'm not sure.
fundraising to keep the heat on. I don't think so. I think there'll be some kind of crossover period.
And probably question about whether um, the spaces that are currently leased, I mean, maybe the village would be an exception, but like the interior lease decorations, whether that would even be accessible during renovations.
Right.
I think too, that we can
Yeah.
look to their relationship with the Preservation Trust of Vermont in order to answer a lot of these questions. Because I think they've tackled this in other communities. And most everything that comes along, the Preservation Trust seems to be a really good resource. So maybe what we do before we go any further is I'll do a little work on getting some information, on how this relationship works out. Because they've done.
Yeah, they've done tons of these. Yeah, yeah.
There's a ghost over there. Something just,
No, we know what it
situated
is.
over there. It's a little scary.
We know what.
Katie's like,
Got my feet up off the ground. The nice.
That's even loud.
Wow.
They got into yeah.
Okay.
Can you see it?
I'm on edge.
They better not start chewing away at the artifacts.
Okay.
Suddenly the meeting came.
Yeah.
All right, I'll do that and,
And
I'll-
I'll have Gordon reach out to Meg Campbell.
well, yeah, maybe that's the best way to do it is Gordon.
I'm sure she can grab somebody's lease as a template and we can start with that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, is that all right?
Yes, wow. Sounds like a plan to me. Yeah, okay. Scott, town manager updates.
Just a few tonight, we have a trustees of public funds opening, we posted that. Sharon McLaughlin may have had left, so. Yeah.
I'm glad she's a singer.
I know, I'm sorry.
Ian Singer.
It came right out. We have the bridge grand, the pedestrian bridge grand opening for the Riverwalk, June 28th, a week from Saturday at 10 a.m. Ivan, you're gonna be there to make a few comments, right? And everybody else is invited for the ribbon cutting. So please plan.
You're gonna be there, Vice Chairwoman? Good, excellent.
And I mentioned earlier, the employee survey, I'm gonna send you the copies of the survey results. It's anonymous, but it just showed some interesting things, a lot of good comments, and there were a few, negative comments, which is what you would expect. And you actually hope for that because you learn from that more. So I'll send you guys copies of that electronically, so you have that. And Katie made these beautiful pie charts with it too, so. That's all I got.
Under other business, I've actually been approached by two different people, on this particular item. We're seeing a lot of, activity downtown, protests, celebrations, so forth, that occasionally spill into the public right away. Most of it, a lot of it happens on the public right away. And one of the people that talked to me was almost hit a child, who kind of darted out in front of them, and luckily nothing happened. And but they were upset by this, and they were saying there really ought to be some crowd control, crossing guards, whatever, somebody in a brightly colored vest that is keeping people organized when they're crossing the road and all that sort of thing. And it's not the kind of thing that we can dedicate police officers to, and we have a limited number of officers. For certain events, we mandate that they have traffic control or crowd control. And these tend to be, while not spontaneous, you don't really know what the magnitude of it's going to be. And it's certainly something that's important to the fiber of the American lifestyle. In my thought process on this, I'm thinking, should there be a permit for having a rally, a protest, whatever? And in the context of that, some sort of provision from the organizer. Sometimes there's not a specific organizer, so it might be difficult for someone to be in charge of managing crowd at crosswalks and that sort of thing. It wouldn't have to be a police officer. It could be a responsible person that says, that's from within the group, that, hey, I'll be happy to do this just so that nobody gets run over. Put on a brightly colored vest and just try to manage people as they're crossing the road or whatever, or even cars that where the driver may not be as attentive as they should be. And then as I was thinking about it, say there may be in some cases a connection with the fire department, who there are members of the fire department that are very proficient in traffic control, and they have the vests and that sort of thing, that maybe for a donation, the fire department would step up and help with crowd control, traffic control. I'm just thinking out loud here, because I would hate to have an unfortunate accident where somebody gets injured. And that would certainly dampen the enthusiasm for something. In some situations, it's a happy event. In others, it's
Well, here, so is that at the event, the Pride event, or was that on the?
I think it was I think it was
'Cause
the.
I was out there going around the circle the entire.
Yeah, no, I didn't hear any comments on the Pride event.
Okay, because I'm like, oh, is that my kid?
But no, it was the Kings, no Kings.
Okay, and that was, I mean, that was one of the largest.
Yeah, it was.
450 plus people.
Yeah. I did not go through,
It was-
got a lot going on, but I had people tell me that the people that stayed on the outside of the roundabout for the most part, it was.
Yeah, there was no one in the middle. 'cause I
Nobody
came
had
through
an
right at
interior
10 o'clock.
portion,
and
but
there was no one.
there were a couple of situations where in people's enthusiasm or whatever, so
Right.
somebody stepped out, and we have people that are trying to navigate that part of town, and there's a lot going on. So just something to think about. I don't have any recommendations, but there could be some way to.
Do we have any barriers that we can set up, or rope line or something to keep people on the sidewalks versus in the middle? I know they did pretty well. There were.
Yeah, I
people
didn't
in the
hear any
middle.
complaints about people being on the middle of the road.
Yeah.
We had one, and the police officer removed them.
Okay.
And they were fine with it.
Yeah, and that's gonna happen because people don't know.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, when I went
if we can just give it some thought, that in some of these larger events, there really should be somebody who is designated, or maybe a couple of somebodies that are designated to try to help them.
Sounds like we're going.
Although on the complete opposite side of it, I will say that whoever was hired to do the Burn Burton graduation, that was horrible.
Oh, that was Bennington County Sheriff's.
No, it wasn't. It was Green Mountain flagging.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they were out there and they had one stop sign.
And I saw sheriff cars everywhere.
No, there was, when they were out here in front of by the rink.
Yeah.
There was one stop sign, two people. But they were, when they turned the sign, they were stopping one direction of traffic, even though there was no reason for them to stop. Like completely, and then they would turn it and then we were like, wait, can we go? Like, is that for them or is that for us? Like, what is going on? So anyway, I would just say that I think that, obviously a lot of these groups that are congregating at the roundabout generally don't have the potential funds to hire someone, whether they could come up with donations. Yeah, absolutely. I think making sure that there is like for the most part, we're going to know the groups that are doing it. I think that, that there's a common thread that we could say, I mentioned, Lori had mentioned, Denise just mentioned, do not stand in the center of the roundabout, right? Like that's number one. But having the designated person, even just to be aware of it. If it's something as large as No Kings with 450 people, maybe that's a different consideration. But, like the Palestinian group that's out there with 5 or 6 people, does that require it? I don't know. You don't want it to be a hindrance of their ability to speak.
Some of these things can grow spontaneously.
Oh, absolutely. I was just gonna say, as part of my other business was that we had almost 100 people show up on Sunday and Lori was there, so thank you. And we had people from Pownell, Bennington, all over the place. And it was a great event. And I've actually got the reason why I did it. And the reason why I felt it was important was for visibility and for people to see that happening in their community. And I have received at least 1 or 2 people that have reached out and said, this was the first time I felt I've been able to participate and feel comfortable in my home. So I felt that was really important. Just wanted to share that.
It's good. Good job.
It was a good time. I think I agree. It's like when people stay off the center, people were on the center circle for something that I was at. And
It was the first No King.
Oh,
The first one,
dangerous.
Yeah.
But when everybody's, standing back, unfortunately, accidents can happen. And it is all about the speed of the traffic mostly coming in. There were a few cases where there were some pretty fast cars.
Purpose, yes.
And, but for the most part, it was
Well,
very
and-
well behaved and
And
Good time.
there's always the potential when
Yeah.
there's something like that going on, if it's a protest or a celebration, that somebody's gonna take offense and behave badly.
Yeah.
And,
Which I actually wanted to bring up. I know that we've already had the street, the first street fest, but one of the things I saw that they did in Bennington for Mayfest into the 4 corners was they actually had the fire truck across the entrance of Main Street.
yeah.
And because I was actually the first booth in Mayfest, and I felt was a very good idea. And I actually liked when I drove through when preparations were coming for setting up for Street Fest this last one, and I saw the people for the band that were actually had their cars. But to me, it was like that was a barrier from someone just coming around that circle and just plowing into.
Yeah.
Because we do have the bollards on the side, so that would stop people from going on the sidewalk. But just driving back from Albany today and seeing a car not paying attention as they're rounding the curve in Bennington and coming right across the median right in my car, I can imagine that something like that could happen and be a travesty for our community. So having a perfectly placed fire truck on both ends even if it's the ambulance, the rescue squad or something, that's the last item towards Walgreens. I think that's a great. I know that's not what you originally talked about, but.
It's, any other business?
I'm just gonna mention that someone had posted on Facebook earlier today that there was a lot of graffiti around
I
here
saw
somewhere.
something about
I
that.
don't know where it is.
Yeah.
I could go back and look at the post and reach out to her.
I didn't
to
see it.
ask
Somebody
her
sent
where.
me the post.
Yes.
Because that's the only way I see that stuff.
And somebody recommended this sandblasting way of getting rid of, which is nicer.
Are you aware of the graffiti?
No, I usually get complaints like that, but I haven't gotten any.
The sandblasting, I think, endorsed it on the grant, of the marble, somebody had. Is that it?
No,
Oh,
but I'm nervous. If you got that email before.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm fully
Okay,
intending to
good.
do that.
Okay.
If you were gonna make a motion, I was gonna
Yep.
stop you.
Yeah, good. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
no.
Sandblasting.
No, but somebody mentioned, I think it was at the quarry, somebody had put graffiti on the marble. And they hired somebody who does this sandblasting, it just disappears. Which is maybe, we painted under the bridge, I think, on East Manchester Road. It just keeps getting different layers of squares,
Different shades of gray.
different shades of gray.
I don't know if we're up to 50 yet.
I guess I'm just making a request to the public that if they see something, they need to just.
It's really disheartening.
disheartening.
Somebody, there was graffiti, I know where it may be, it's on the side of the, at the waterfall, on the side of the Kimball Building. Really sad,
Oh, really?
really sad. And I saw it when they were putting the bridge in. That was perfect.
It's on the water side, like
Yeah, it was, you're standing in the park side looking
looking over, okay.
down low and it's.
Yeah, I'll take a look for
I think some graffiti artists, I've been told, are sought after artists, but that's not the canvas I would use.
Well, is there any other business? If not, I just want to, if people haven't heard, that Ted Hopkins, longtime fire chief here in Manchester, carpenter, passed away just recently. Ted was a great member of the community, probably one of the best storytellers I've ever known. When he got out of high school, he went to work for my father as a carpenter. And I remember as a very small child being afraid of him because he was such kind of a big imposing guy with a lot of dark hair. And they were building the house next door to our house on Mountain View Terrace. And he was they were pouring the foundation. He was down in there and I was terrified of him. Didn't take long to learn that he was just a big teddy bear. And he had the right name. Great guy, did a lot of wonderful things for the community, gave a lot of great talks, collected antique tools, had the most extensive collection of antique tools I've ever seen.
Chisels.
I just wanted to close the meeting with perhaps a moment of silence and adjourn in memory of Ted Hopkins. We're gonna miss him.
You need a motion to adjourn with the moment of silence.
Let's take a moment of silence right now, please.
Okay.
And then we'll adjourn the meeting, motion to adjourn in memory of.
I'll make a motion to adjourn in memory of wonderful Ted Hopkins, neighbor and friend.
Second that.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Scott, our next meeting,
July 1st.
July 1st. And just now